Welcome, everyone, to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Janet, who is the CEO and founder of Lighthouse Therapy. Janet, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, tell everyone a little bit more about Lighthouse Therapy and what you guys are all about.
So, like you said, my name is Janet Courtney. I am an SLP. I'm a speech language pathologist, and Lighthouse Therapy was founded in 2018 to be a therapy company for schools online. So we are a virtual online therapy contract company. So we're online therapy company is what we are. And we provide services to schools that have shortages, can't find enough, you name it. And it's all school-based. So no private, we're not a private practice. We only contract with schools. So we have schools where we have just one student or one evaluation, and that usually gets our toe in the door. And then we grow from there. And we also have some that we have hundreds of students at one school. So, and then we have the others where we have multiple schools, and, it just depends. And we always tailor, our services to whatever they need. Our primary line is speech therapy, but we also have OT, PT, and all the behavioral mental health. And this year we're adding special education teachers or specialized academic instruction. So I'm excited about that.
Tell me a little bit more, Janet. That's exciting. Always adding new things is exciting, especially when there's a nice path ahead. But tell me a little bit more what made you decide moving from just being a speech therapist to creating the business?
Couple of things. First of all, I'm a Christian and I felt called. God very clearly said to me, I want you to start your own company. I don't know how to do that, but I did it. And he is central to everything that we do. I mean, faith is our center core value. I don't shy away from my faith at all. And we bootstrapped it. But the reason that I was looking and asking and seeking was because I didn't like how therapists were being treated. We are the ones that are doing the work. Those people that are the therapists that are logging on are the ones that are earning the revenue. They're the ones that are seeing the kids. They're the ones that are making us successful. And I felt, in my opinion, they weren't being valued. And I want to value them. So our mission is to be a therapy company run by therapists. It's not just me anymore, for therapists for the betterment of students, because you've got schools and you've got therapists, but in the middle is those students. And that is the reason that we do what we do in education. It's because of the kids. So let's take care of the students by taking care of the therapists. So our therapists get a mentor. Our therapists I always tell them there's no stupid question. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So always ask questions, and value your people. I mean, if you value your people, then that comes through. And I'm also a communicator. So have really excellent, it's one of the things we've heard a lot, excellent communication, 24 hours. If you reach out to us and you ask us a question, whether you're a school or a therapist or a family member of one of our students, within one business day, you will get a call back or an email back from somebody. Even if it's a therapist who doesn't work every day, at least they'll get an out of office that says, hey, I'm not working on Tuesdays, but you'll get I'll get back to you as soon as I get back, because then they know they're heard. There's nothing more frustrating than feeling like people aren't hearing you. So
interesting. Yeah. And before we quickly started, you mentioned a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight, which is one that jumped out at me, which is you said, I surround myself with a lot of smart people. And instead of spinning all the plates myself, I just give them the place to spin. So I would love to hear on your end how you have been able to manage putting those people in the right positions within the business. And how did you know they were the right people for the roles that you wanted?
Well, again, that goes back to God. I think he brings me smart people. He really does. I mean, and I trust my people. Some of them are, we're a family business, first of all. So the analogy you were giving, and just so that the podcast people, the people that are watching, the juggler with the plates, right? So you spin all the plates yourself, and then as they juggle, as they wobble, that's the one that gets the attention. So one of those is marketing, and then sales and recruiting and clinical and all of those different aspects, tech, right? So I'm very blessed by 3 incredibly smart children that work for me, and then also my husband, who is our CTO.
Mm.
My daughter is our COO. She does all of our billing and finance and is being groomed to take this position when I retire, hopefully in about 10 years. And then my two boys, my daughter and my son started it with me. And my one son has been doing tech support since day one. And the other one is in recruiting, although he's about to join our military forces. So I'm super excited for him. He wants to be a pilot. So he's going into that. But that's the first part. I started with family and we stayed family. My sister actually works full time for us as well, too, which is funny. She's an assistant to my director of marketing. But then it's, getting those other people is, it's a feeling that I have when I interview them. It's the experience that they already have, but it's also trusting that they're going to do their job. I always tell people it's trust, but verify, right?
Yeah.
You cannot, if you want to grow as an entrepreneur, you cannot micromanage people. If you micromanage people, you might as well just do it yourself, because you can only there's only 24 hours in a day, right? And anybody who runs a business knows that it is not a 9-to-5 job, right? This is not 9-to-5 ever. If you wanted something that was going to be easier, don't start your own business, because that's not it. But giving those people the tools, and again, it goes back to trusting people and empowering people. I really feel like you give them the tools to do their job. We set quarterly goals. We make sure that that everybody's kind of going in the same direction.
Sure.
And we have a weekly meeting, but the meeting is about how's it going? What are we, we don't want to rehash something that everybody's done, but we spend the first half hour of that meeting, that weekly meeting, we do your best personal news and your best work news. And I can't even take claim for that. It's part of EOS, but also our director of marketing has been doing that since day one. And so I stole it from him. I'm like, oh, that's good. We need to do that with everybody. So because we're all remote, I mean, I'm talking to you from a bedroom that is actually an office in my house. So every single we have therapists all over the United States. We started in Michigan, but we're in Texas. So I have friends, and they're great friends that work for me, but they're also incredible at what they do. So my director of human resources is up there. My director of marketing is up there. I mean, up in Michigan.
I'm interested to ask something.
Director of finance as well. But
you mentioned, obviously, there's a lot of friends, family that are within the business. And the usual advice that you would hear from people is never do business. Never do business with family, never do business with friends. How have you found that dynamic to be, and how are you making it work well?
Good. Open, honest communication. It's interesting that you asked that question, because my director of finance is my best friend in the entire world. She and I have been friends for 15 years. And when I started this company, we looked at each other and went, nope, can't work for me. That would kill our relationship. And so for 4 years, she didn't. Until I got to a place where, and I don't know, I just felt like it was again, it's a God thing, it felt like the right thing at that time. And she didn't come in financing. She came in HR, and then she's just incredible with numbers, and she's very precise. So
is she looking for a job?
Yeah, you can't have her. So, but we at the very beginning, we said, we are family always comes first. If my kids are sick, the company will survive without me. I will always step into mom, wife, friend role first, because at the end of the day, no one's at the end of your life. You've got your date of birth and date of death, and there's that dash in the middle. Nobody in that dash says, gosh, I wish I'd worked more. Nobody says that. So you have to value people. It goes back to valuing human beings and, loving people and being kind and apologizing. Oh my goodness. When I was younger, I never wanted to say I was sorry. I am the first person to say, screwed up. That was me. I'm sorry. Because as a leader, and I love Simon Sinek. I love his stuff. He's amazing. Yeah. As a leader, you have to lead that way. If you lead being, I'm the one's in charge, everybody has to listen to me, you're not going to get anywhere. If you say, let's try this thing and see if, we've done the research, we've done the market research and looked at it, and we think it's a good thing. And then we step into it together, and it falls flat on its face, then I'm like, well, that didn't work. That's my fault. We don't have
Yeah.
many like that though. We
Yeah.
don't do that very often, but
Mm-hmm.
because we know we also know our market. We know our market incredibly well, and we
Mm-hmm.
know, and we're making changes because we're listening to our people,
Mm.
not just like the management team, but we're listening to the therapist and going, what do you want? How can we
Mm.
make your life better? We just started offering our speech therapists CEUs. Everybody wants CEUs. So through our marketing initiative, we were able
Mm.
to market to contract with a speech therapy PD. There, I'll give them a plug, speechtherapypd.com. And they're going to help us with an event to do a continuing ed event to try to
Mm.
attract therapists. But also because of that partnership, all of my speech therapists now get all of their CEUs for free,
Mm. What's a
because I'm
CEU?
paying for them. I'm sorry, continuing education units.
Okay.
Every
Awesome.
every
Yeah.
discipline you have to have. Now I've
Yep.
only done it for speech, but I have other disciplines, so that's something
That
I
makes
have to
sense.
address.
Yeah.
But they're my biggest portion. The biggest need that we have is SLP. So
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
yeah. And so that piece of it is really important. And then the other piece is, some therapists don't want the contract 1099 because
Mm.
it's 1099 scares them. They don't
Mm.
understand 1099. They don't get great advice sometimes about 1099. So they think that they're not going to be able to pay their taxes or, have
Mm.
benefits or whatever. And they're coming from schools or they're coming from a traditional W-2
Mm-hmm.
position. And so that's something we're working on. We just hired some labor and employment attorneys to figure out how we can provide W-2 and 1099, because it's a whole. I
Sure.
learned that we don't live in a free country when I started my own business. It's like there's too many regulations.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. And
but yeah, so that's what
mhm.
we're doing. We're just
Yeah.
addressing the market.
Mhm. That makes sense, and I'm wondering. Obviously, you guys have a bit of an interesting dynamic in which you're working with the schools, but obviously the end consumer is always going to be the students, the people that are
Mm-hmm.
within those schools. But I'm wondering, what are some of the challenges in being able to create those relationships with schools? Obviously, one, growing the business, but also helping a lot more schools at the same time.
There's always more people that can say no than yes.
Hmm.
It's really hard to find that one person that can say yes. That is one of the hardest things, because and it's a moving target
Hmm.
depending on what school you're talking to. And there's also some schools and some states are heavy on RFPs,
Yeah.
requests for proposals. So that can be difficult. In California, we have to have a non-public agency certification. So you have to have
Mm.
that first. There's lots of hoops and hurdles
Mm.
that you have to go through. And so much of sales is relationships. So it's not, necessarily what you know, but who you know.
Hmm.
So we have grown in pockets as well. Like this person, we do a really good job here. So now we have this one and that
Mm.
one over there, so we've done that. And
Yeah.
some of it is just, we've gone to shows, we
Hmm.
go to, and that's something that we're going to probably be doing more as we
Mm.
grow.
Interesting. So is
Because
the challenge more so on like the bureaucracy of it and like
yes,
getting through those hoops, or more so on like finding the people to have these conversations with so you can pursue a possible relationship, work
yeah,
relationship with
it's a bunch of different things, because it's like you have to find that one right person, but they also have to be willing to do teletherapy because it's a non-traditional way of doing service,
them?
and there's study after study that shows that
Sure.
our kids are digital natives. They don't know a world without technology. So
Yeah.
they're really good at it. And the schools during the pandemic that did well with remote were the ones that embraced it. If you don't embrace it, and you try to
Mm.
put a student on a computer for 7.5 hours, you've already lost them. Oh my gosh, you can't do that. Tried to tell people that, but there were many that did not listen. But the
Uh-huh.
ones that were successful understood how learning happens and
Mm.
how kids learn. And they also talk about learning loss. And it's like, yeah, they lost learning that you wanted them to learn. They didn't stop learning.
Mm.
They just didn't learn what we as, educators wanted them to learn. So,
Mm.
but it's about that piece. It's about finding that right person, getting them to know that you're there, and trusting that you're going to provide excellent services because they have this
Mm.
pain point, right? This pain point is they don't have enough SLPs. So, or they have a therapist that's going out on leave because she's having a baby or her husband's sick or whatever. And
Sure.
we only need you for this much time. And so, they can't staff that quickly enough. And the kids, the students, the IEP continues, the services need to be provided. So there's that piece of it as well. So it is all, we do a ton of marketing. We do a ton of, we also use the Ask You Answer from Marcus Sheridan. Sure. So we've developed our website to answer their questions and try to get those questions answered before they come to us. So that hopefully they know and they see my face, that recognition of me.
Sure.
And our salespeople, so that when they come, they feel like they kind of already know us a little bit.
I see.
That's a piece of it. And then it's having really good therapists ready to go. If you can, and that's really hard mid-year. Therapists are, we are loyal. We're a loyal bunch. So that they may be in a job that they absolutely hate. They have a caseload that is a typical caseload shouldn't be more than 50 or 60 kids. And they'll have a caseload of 125 kids. And nobody's making any progress because they're doing all groups and they're running around with like a chicken with their head cut off, right? So they're burning them out. Burnout is a real thing in education. And so they're burning them out, but they'll stay until the end of the year, or they'll stay till the end of the semester because they don't want to do that to their kids. The students that they're working on, they're loyal. So we have windows of time where we can hire. We're heading into March, April, May, June, July is our best recruiting time. So we tell schools, contract with us now. You're looking at your budget for next year. Contract with us now. We are not a company that is going to lock you in, which is what happens. They get scared because they've got budgets that they've got to meet. And there are companies out there that will say, you have to give us 20 kids or you're going to pay for 20 kids. And then they're stuck with it and they don't need it. And that's, I'm like, I would never do that because that's not, their budgets are tight enough as it is. I would never steal their money. I don't want your money. If we're not doing anything for you, I don't want your money. But I do want you to be loyal to me as well and know that I've gone out and got you a good therapist.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you said the words, we're doing a ton of marketing. I just want to touch on that because that sometimes can be very relative to the company and what they mean by that. I've had, actually, funnily enough, this reminds me of a story. I was speaking with a CEO of a company that was doing about, I think, 40 to 50 million. And then they were like, yeah, we're doing a ton of marketing. I was like, lovely. Tell me more about it. What are you guys doing? And he's like, yeah, so we go to like events and that's it. And I was like, anything else that you guys do? He's like, no, just events. And I was like, oh, interesting. So to them, a ton of marketing was just doing events. So I'm wondering what a ton of marketing means to you.
So events is one of them. Going to shows, right? Going to shows. We do email campaigns. We do videos. We have in LinkedIn, we have a group called Special Education Leadership Development Group, which is all special education leaders in the United States. And we have about, I think, 5,000 people in that group now. So we're constantly putting out materials in there. And that's a place for value, like add value add, and people are not allowed to sell in those groups and people are not allowed to recruit in those groups. The only people who can sell and recruit in that group is me because it's my group.
Of course.
And people get kind of grumpy about us about that, but it's like, hey, and there are people, because it's being seen as valuable to people, but they're all lurkers. I mean, it doesn't sell anything. It just gives a brand awareness.
For sure.
So, and we've worked really hard on SEO. If you do online therapy for schools, Lighthouse Therapy is #1 in an organic search. But that's all changing with AI too. So, it's some of that it's going to be interesting to see how the industry grows and changes with AI. So we do that. And I do podcasts. Anytime somebody asks me to do a podcast, I will come and I will talk to you about Lighthouse all day long because I love. You
don't seem like you like talking. No, I don't know.
Never. No. My husband will say, you can't shut her up. You can't shut her up. So
that's funny. Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
I was wondering when it comes to, and this is a question that I'm asking almost everybody, to be honest with you, and because I think it gets the ceiling off of their thinking. But if you had a magic wand, Janet, and you could just wave this wand, and it can just solve one thing. Obviously, there's a million things that we can always improve and optimize in the business, but just one thing that you can solve that maybe would allow you to reach your goals, get to your targets. You spoke about some goals before we had this conversation too. Getting to those a lot faster in an optimized way. What would that one thing be for you?
Cash flow. It's the hardest thing in the world when you bootstrap a company like we do. I don't have a big pile of money. We're working on getting a pile of money. But we don't take investors. So, I just won't. It's like every single big company that's in my space and teletherapy has taken investors, and their culture changes immediately and the CEOs are out. So, that's part of our advertisement. We are a company that will work with you, a family company that does not take investors. So cash flow is hard for us because, it's like we're learning how to manage it, and we're doing per student kind of stuff. And we're asking schools to pay 20% up front, which is a huge help because they all pay in arrears. So cash flow is my magic wand. And I'm working on fixing that magic wand, making my own. It's like anything else. It's like, how do you fix a problem? Yeah. You work on it, right? You just can't sweep it under the rug. That's not okay. Yeah. So
what are some of the things you're doing to work on that?
Yeah. So one of these is that 20%. We're asking schools to do 20%.
I see.
We're doing a per student pricing model instead of fee for service model, which makes it easier for the schools. Plus, it's going to help us with one of the things when you do fee for service, meaning they pay for every single little thing that happens. Is they'll complain about, the schools will go in and they'll nitpick about things and nitpick because they've got a budget. I get that. When you take fee for service out of the picture and you put in a per student model, then they're not going to nitpick any. Well, they might still nitpick, but it's not going to change their price. It's not going to change what they're paying. We had one school, because of the fires, we lost $1,600 because we pay our therapists. If our therapists are available, we pay them. But they said, well, that was an act of God. It wasn't anything that we could control. So why should we have to pay you? I was like, because it's in your contract. But I'm not gonna argue with them. They're a long-term contract, and it's that $1,600 is not worth losing that contract. So okay, fine. But next year, my plan, as we come into the sales cycle for this next year, let's do it this way. So you don't have to look at all of that baloney. It'll be faster for you. The other thing that we have done as well is if they pay in 10 days, we give them a discount. Depending on how long they've been with us, 3 to 5%. And we have one big school that takes advantage of that discount every single month. She's like, she fine tooth combs it as fast as she can. And then she gets it back to us and says, fix these things so that we can pay you on time. And they do, they pay us on, and it's a good, their bill is $15,000 to $20,000 every month. So it's a nice chunk that comes in. So that's one thing that we're learning, how to manage that better, manage that cash flow better. The rest of it, contracting, finding the right people, finding the right therapist. That's why I have an amazing sales guy. That's why I have an amazing recruiter. We've upped our game in both of those areas. So Lighthouse is going to explode, and partly because God said, I want you to do that. Okay, I'll do it. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have one final question for you, Janet, which is actually not a question from me. It's a question from the past guest, and they had no idea who you were. Okay. So, ready for it?
Yeah, sure.
How do you go about trusting data, and specifically digital marketing data, if you can attest to that, knowing that oftentimes that data might not be 100% accurate?
How do I trust it? I'm not the one who manages it mostly. That is, my husband's my CTO. So he does a lot of they do a lot of number crunching. I'm not the number person. So I leave that to my director of marketing, which is Mark Wallenmine. He's really great with the numbers. One thing that drives me crazy is they talk about conversions. It's like, oh, it's a conversion because somebody filled out no, it's not. To me, a conversion is not a conversion until they sign on the dotted line. That's a conversion to me. Like, I want you all the way through the pipeline and signed as a customer. That's a conversion. Those high level numbers, I don't stress about those high level numbers. It's like you can start your funnel way up here and there are 7,000 people in it. Well, those 7,000 people are going to drop down to this one person, right?
Mm.
eventually. So I'm more concerned about what's going on down there. And
Mm.
then once they've already turned into a customer, you have to keep them. So keeping them means taking care of them. And we have
Mm.
a 79% return rate on our customers and an 80% return rate on our therapists because we take care of people. That's
Awesome.
why. So big numbers. I don't stress about big numbers. I really don't. I stress about the stuff that matters, which is the human beings and that human factor, because it matters more than any of the other things. So,
Well, Janet, thank you
yeah,
so much for your time. We really appreciate you sharing your insights. Where can people go if they want to learn a little bit more about what you have going on?
sure. Our website is lighthouse-therapy.com. So it's that little minus sign. You got to get that in there. So lighthouse-therapy.com is our website. And then when you get into the website, we have a side for therapists and we have a side for schools. Are you a school leader or are you a therapist? Because they're two different entities that like I said, we're selling to both. So that's where they can find us. And then you're going to talk to other people besides me.
Well, awesome, Janet. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet.